All right, let's dive right in. We're going to talk about the code of life itself, genetics. And look, this isn't just some dry biology lesson. This is the ultimate story of who we are, where we come from. It's the incredible molecular blueprint that connects literally every living thing on Earth. It all really kicks off with a question that people have been asking forever. Why do we look like our parents, but we're not, exact copies? You might have your dad's nose or your mom's laugh, but you're still uniquely you. So, how does that work? That simple question, that's the key that unlocks the entire field of genetics. And sometimes this whole question of inheritance throws up a real mystery. Take the Hopi people of Black Mesa, Arizona. Now, in most places, albinism is super rare. We're talking like 1 in 20,000 people. But among the Hopi, it's 1 in 200. That is 100 times more common. It's this incredible puzzle that involves culture, history, and a really cool genetic idea. But to really get our heads around that, we've got to cover the basics first. And that science, of course, is genetics. It's the field that's all about cracking the code of heredity, explaining everything from why your eyes are a certain color to fascinating puzzles like the one we see with the Hopi people. For ages, scientists knew something was being passed from parent to child, but they had no clue what it was made of. This started one of the greatest detective stories in the history of science, the hunt for the actual physical stuff of heredity. The trail really starts back in the 1860s with Gregor Mendel, a monk who patiently figured out the basic rules of inheritance just by looking at pea plants. A little while later, Friedrich Miescher found this mystery gunk in cells that he called nuclein. For decades, nobody was sure what carried our traits until a game-changing experiment in 1944 finally cracked the case, leading to that iconic double helix shape we all know today. And this was the mic drop moment. For years, everybody thought proteins had to be the genetic material. They were way more complex. But this experiment proved, without a doubt, that it was this other molecule, DNA, that held the power. They had found the code. So what is this code of life? Well, it's deoxyribonucleic acid. Yeah, let's just stick with DNA. It's this incredibly long molecule with 2 strands that twist around each other into that beautiful and really stable double helix. And that elegant shape holds the instruction manual for building and running pretty much every living thing we know of. Okay, so we've found the blueprint, but how does a long string of molecules actually build, well, you, or a tree, or a tiny bacterium? How does the code actually spring to life? The process is actually pretty straightforward. Biologists call it the central dogma. First, you take a section of the DNA blueprint, that's a gene, and you make a temporary copy of it. That copy is called RNA. Then, that RNA message gets read, kind of like a ticker tape, to build a specific protein. And those proteins, they're the little workers that do pretty much everything, creating the traits that we can actually see. I mean it, proteins are the real workhorses here. They are the tiny machines that build our bodies, carry oxygen in our blood, and make all the chemical reactions happen that keep us going. So think of it this way. DNA is the architect's plan, but proteins are the construction crew that actually builds the house. But here is where the story gets a really, really interesting twist. It turns out the code itself isn't the only thing that matters. Our experiences, our environment, they can actually change how that code gets read. To see what I mean, just look at this really powerful study. Researchers looked at children who grew up in Romanian orphanages, and they asked a profound question. Could the stress of that kind of childhood leave a physical scar on their biology, right down to the level of their chromosomes? And what they found was just stunning. The kids who stayed in the institutions had much shorter telomeres. Now, telomeres are like the little plastic tips on your shoelaces. They protect the ends of our DNA. Shorter telomeres are linked to aging faster. But the kids who were moved into foster care, they had longer telomeres. The experience of care and neglect had literally left a physical mark on their DNA. This whole idea is part of a field called epigenetics. It's the study of how things like your diet or stress can add little chemical tags, think of them like sticky notes, onto your DNA. These notes don't change the letters of the code, but they tell your cells which genes to turn on and which to ignore. It's like a whole other layer of control sitting right on top of the code itself. So, all of this deeper understanding has led to a complete explosion in technology. I mean, we've gone from just watching traits get passed down to being able to read and even edit the genetic code with incredible precision. And if you want to see just how powerful this is, look no further than the story of Enoch. Scientists took a 4,000-year-old tuft of hair they found frozen in Greenland, and from that, they sequenced his entire genome. They figured out he probably had dark skin, brown eyes, and was likely to go bald. A stunningly detailed picture of a man who lived millennia ago, all from a few strands of hair. And this power to read the code is changing everything. We're talking about personalized medicine, where treatments are designed just for your DNA. We're talking about gene therapies that could fix diseases at their source, and engineering crops to feed the world. And now we have tools like CRISPR, which is basically a molecular find and replace for DNA. It's a total game changer. And that brings us to the biggest question of all. We've gone from mystery to discovery to now having the power to actually rewrite the blueprint of life itself. The ability to read the code gave us incredible knowledge, but the ability to write it, well, that gives us an immense responsibility. So the question for all of us is, what story are we going to tell?